What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live. Welcome. We're going to do a Q&A today. Seems to be very popular, and it gets a lot of questions answered. If you're new to the sensible prepping or just prepping in general, hopefully we can answer some questions. There are some good ones that usually come over, and we'll talk a little bit before we get started. Now, if you do have questions, Sarah Mac's over monitoring all the comments, and so she can get those questions to me, and we'll just go through it. If not, we can talk about some other things. But typically we have quite a few questions. But before we get started, first thing, check out suchgear.com. It's our website. We do a lot of cool things with monthly giveaways. We've got a big sweepstakes right now going on that's pretty cool. Some new t-shirts, even our first Sensible Prepper t-shirt and Sensible Prepper ball cap. And a lot of other stuff. We do a blog over there. We have a lot of videos that you can't watch on YouTube because, different reasons. But it's a great resource, and we really appreciate you guys going over there. We do a weekly newsletter as well. Also, a big thank you to Exotac. They do sponsor us, and they make the best fire starters in the country, or in the world for that matter. The tools are just excellent. And guys, you need a fire kit. It'll boil your water, cook your food, give you heat, give you light, keep predators at bay, and it just builds good morale. And having a fire kit is essential. There's a lot of different tools that they use. And you get 20% off using Such20 with the link down below in the description. And we really appreciate Exotac. Guys, also, I just recommend highly to build your survival library. And one book that I bring up every Sensible Prepper episode is the Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse, written by Verfau, about actual events that happened in Argentina back in 2001. This is something that when you think about prepping or survival and you have a scenario in your mind, this will give you a whole new insight. And Argentina at the time was a first world country. The link's down below. It's just an Amazon link. But this is a book that I just highly recommend. And I know a lot of you guys have bought it. A lot of feedback has been really positive. But you need to have some kind of survival library. It's just vital. And have those references just in case the internet's out for temporary or for an extended period of time. All right, guys. So, one of the things about prepping, and this is one thing that I have really become big about, is you can't prep enough. And I think that kind of helps with our mindset. One of the problems is a lot of people feel, they got to stockpile all this stuff, and before long you become a hoarder because you are buying up and loading up things. It puts a strain on your finances, and it just causes a lot of problems. And two, people can be obsessed with it. A lot of people want to make this their hobby, and that's what really, honestly, I do. It's kind of like a hobby to me in a sense because I do prepare, and I've been doing this for a number of years. But you need to have balance. Here's the thing about prepping. Whatever you do buys you some time. If all you do is go to the grocery store and pick up a couple of extra cans of, food and maybe some rice and beans, and you just put it back, that gives you a little bit of time. And every time, the more you're prepared, the more that you have to get to a new normal. And it gives you better decisions, more wise decisions. One of the things about it, if you are just not prepared and something happens, a lot of times people panic. They get into anxiety. And so with the prepping, this helps you to build up. We did a video recently, though, that said, "Are preppers crazy?" And that kind of addresses that. You can look back over it. And two, a lot of people listen to this while they're driving, or they listen to it as a podcast because because we're just talking and we're not showing a whole lot of things. So it makes a good way to be able to get immersed into the prepping community. So with all that being said, when Sarah Mac gets some questions, she can just give me, okay, we got some questions.
Gen X Outdoor and Preparedness says, question, do you think a shift in prepping happens when administration change, and how does yours change?
Listen, you are dead on. It definitely changes. Right now with the Trump slump is what we call it. A lot of people they've kind of felt a little less panicked, a little less concerned about the future. And, there's, especially in the gun side, a lot of people are like, okay, Trump's in office. There's a lot of new gun legislation that's being taken off, being revised, being addressed. And there's a lot of good signs. Ammunition is really starting to come back. Gun sales are really low right now. And so, and honestly, it's a buyer's market. Here's the thing, guys. We saw what happened over the past 4 years and how it completely shifted the mindset of the country. The whole woke ideology was just taking over. And we were seeing a lot of stuff that we thought, what in the world? I mean, when you can't even identify what a woman is, that's a problem. That is a problem. And then we see a new administration come in and everything is being pushed away. The whole mindset of the country is starting to change. Here's the thing, guys. We have 3.5 years, and that's all we know. In the next 4 years, everything could completely change again. So, when you're prepping, you prep incrementally. You prep and you get yourself in good shape. And really, the final goal is more self-sufficiency or homesteading. Really, if you're really into prepping and you're building up all this stock, really, you need to kind of back up and think about homesteading. But yes, it does affect things. And for me, I think about it. I've got 3.5 years to get myself in good shape. That's what I think about. So again, incrementally keep prepping. Don't stop. Don't go, everything's fine, and just ignore what you have. Continue, maybe fine tune it, maybe do some things that, and really think about it and not under any kind of duress or worry or anxiety. Do it because you know that things can happen and will happen. So that's my answer.
Mr. Landfill says, question, what methods are best to make sure canned food stays rotated?
That's a good one. There are some really cool systems you can buy that have, or you can build it, that have like a ramp system. Just has a little angle. So you put the cans in from the back, you pull them out from the front. It's almost like they do a lot of times at grocery stores, especially like the drinks at a convenience store. You pull the drink out and another one comes down. And so having cans that way that you could just feed from the back, you could build a little wooden shelf area. But that's probably one of the best ways. Or just keep your new stuff at the front, put your older stuff at the back. But it's very important to continue to go through these things. We did that a couple of years ago where some things they were out of date. And I came across some stuff and my wife did. And we were like, whoa, there's some things here. And we went through everything. So having a system is important, but there are some different tools, for lack of a better term, where you can actually use this can rotation system, and it'll just roll down. You pull out the one that's in front, and the next one rolls down, and you keep it in date order. So any kind of system like that works very well. And two, keep your canned food in some kind of climate controlled, out of the sun, and that's an important part as well. But canned food, guys, will last for 100 years. It may be a best buy date, but because of the sanitary conditions where these are being processed, and the heat and the vacuuming and everything else, and the cans are lined now. So that all helps to preserve your food, and it'll give you something. We're really big on canned food because of that. So there are some good systems out there.
Harbor Prepper asks, question, how is Robbie doing? Please let him know that we miss him.
Robbie's doing fine. He's very busy, and I don't hear from him that much. Actually, Robbie had planned on occasion to come back and kind of hang out every once in a while, and he's on the road a lot. And we will let him know. I have told him, and a lot of people do ask about him. I miss him. I mean, I've known Robbie forever, and haven't really seen him. So maybe sometime he might just surprise us all and pop in. But he's doing great, and just kind of starting a whole nother segment of his life, and it's really good. He's a lot less stressed.
Wade Hoagland asks, question, any suggestions on batteries? Have found my stockpile a few had leaked, making the whole pack useless. My thoughts, maybe vacuum pack?
Vacuum pack would work good, especially with your alkaline batteries. I just did a video on the prepping channel on Sensible Prepper with the new O-Station 2 Pro, which it takes your nickel hydride batteries that are rechargeable, and it'll charge them. It's a great system, But I do like to have my standard alkaline batteries as well because they tend to last longer. And I think it's usually a 10-year shelf life. I think maybe though, watching for your batteries, we have something called the Battery Daddy. And it's just this case and we can put the batteries in. It separates the batteries out though. So you can just pull them out as you need them and you just need to rotate them. But, you know, I haven't had any problems with my batteries, you know, corroding in the pack, but we use batteries on a fairly regular basis. So, you know, I guess the big thing is to keep watch of your batteries, monitor and rotate them out. Make sure that the ones, again, just like we talked about the canned food, rotate your batteries out. And don't leave them in your lights and different things. I have a really nice night vision scope where the battery was a AA battery and I left it in there and it wasn't that long and it corroded and it actually ruined the scope, which was a very expensive scope. So, and I have flashlights at times. If I forget and I leave that battery in, then they lock in there. You can't even get them out. So being careful with your alkaline batteries, you know, you need to, if you're going to have something sitting back that you're not using much, you need to keep those batteries out and then put them in. But as far as storage, I think vacuum sealing is a great option and could really, you know, keeps the air out. It keeps them from oxidizing. So that would be a really good way to do it.
Mr. Landfill says, question, I know you keep printed books. What would be the top 5 you recommend for new preppers?
Oh, good question. Okay, so first off, I'll tell you guys, this really is a good friend of mine down in Atlanta. He's a big financial planner. Guy has a lot of means. And he said, you need to check this book out. He goes, yes, we're a little different than Argentina as far as our culture. He goes, but this will change your mind. And it did. And Fowl has done a lot of things. It's really good. One thing that I like to do, though, is I like to read, you know, novels like the Going Home series or with the SAS Survival Guide. That's, you know, manual. That's a really good one to have on reference. Any kind of, you know, where there are no doctors. One thing that I really like is the book Lost Ways, which I kind of came across that. I believe it's Claude Davis. He's got a lot of ads that come up a lot of times, and it goes through things that they used to do back in the 1800s, early 1900s, that you can incorporate and get a little bit back more to simple life. And there's also the book Where There Are No Dentists. In fact, the Mormon, they have a Mormon preparedness guide. That's a big one. It's really good. Those guys have been doing this for a long time. So there's a lot of good information there. And I did a video and you can check that out. It's with building your survival library. And I go through reference books. Then I go through like, you know, series, Alas Babylon. Great book. It was written back in the 50s. It was during the Cold War, and it is one of my favorite books. And that's just a novel, but it gives you information and it gives you things in the book that will make you think. And really, with a new prepper, I think it's probably even better to kind of look at books like Lucifer's Hammer, where there's a meteor that's coming and then it hits the earth and the outcome. It was really, but really good. But then you have like the Going Home series, Lights Out. There's so many. But I do have, again, a video that I just put out. I'll do this occasionally and go through just certain books that you need to have. But you need to have some reference books. You need to have some novels to get your mindset in a certain place. It'll make you think about things you haven't thought about before, which I really like. And they're just, you know, there's so many. There's so many. One thing I would recommend is going to Google and putting in top 10 survival books, you know, or most popular survival books out there. And it will give you a list. They're not always the best, but you can look through it and look at the ratings and it'll help you. But building a survival library to me is vital. And we were having our prepper group Sunday night, and I reiterated that, you know, make sure, guys, that you're putting these books together. You know, any kind of medical books are going to be good, like first aid and trauma, things like that. So, but this is one of my tops, and there's a lot out there that will give you a lot of information.
Postman says, Don, what's your EDC right now?
My EDC is the Olight Ultra, the Arkfeld Ultra. This is honestly, I carry this light every day. I can't put it down. Well, this is funny. I have one of the O knives, and I can't remember which one this one is. I really love the O aluminum, but typically I carry a Microtech, the LUDT. Love that knife. I just wanted to do something a little different. I haven't carried. This is the first day I've carried this in a while. I just like the aluminum on it. Very well done, very lightweight. But Microtech's one of my favorites. I do have the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0. It is 380, but it's tiny. And when I'm around the house, it's just so easy to carry. I don't even know it. And of course, my cell phone. I typically don't carry a multi-tool. And because I find that I don't really need it is on an everyday basis, but I have them handy. I have them close by, along with my fire, some kind of way to create fire. Anything that I'm not like using on a regular basis, but I need it every once in a while. I will have a small EDC kit somewhere local, whether it's in my vehicle, it's in my shop, or over at my house, whatever. I always want to keep those things very handy. And of course, with your get home bag in your car helps as well. But let me see, is there anything else? And my keys. I do use the key bar. I really like the key bar. It just has a lot of cool features to it. And I have one of the O lights, and this is one that's a little bit different. But it's the one that you actually pull off and it comes on, and it's magnetic. So this is really, and it charges in a USB, just plugging it in. So, and I have one of the Rhino glows that I have on my keychain because it's a tritium vial. And when I'm at night, especially when I'm going over to my parents, a lot of times at night to check on them, to do things, I can see my keys sitting there. And if I have them sitting down, I see them. So those are my EDC for today.
Foxtrot Alpha says, how to prep as a military member. Bug out locations with the changing of locations, food supplies, ammo, guns, etc. with the moving. Any advice for this lifestyle? Thanks in advance.
Wow, that is one that we have not touched on. We talk a lot of times to truckers because a lot of times they're moving across country. But yes, in a military situation, I guess the only option would be is to have an offsite storage. And of course, with firearms, it's according to where you are, and especially if you're overseas, that could be an issue as well. I think one thing though is obviously if you're in the military, there's going to be a lot of support behind it. So if there were something that happened, the military they keep a lot of supplies on hand. And so a lot of that's going to be negated as far as in a survival situation to having those supplies that you're going to be taken care of. Plus, in an emergency, typically you guys are going to be deployed. You're going to be, in the field or in certain areas. But having maybe an off-site location, one of the things we do, we have what we call our survival cache or our prep cache, and it's a small storage unit. And me and a buddy split it, and we both keep needed supplies there. Now, having it in a air controlled, or environment controlled place would be the best. But even if you don't, you can have enough supplies. I have crates with certain items in there, and I try to keep like Mountain House, those things that are not susceptible as much to sitting, in a storage area, and just keep my real basic supplies in that storage. Because if I can't get back home for whatever reason, I do have some way to buy me some time. So I think an off-site storage would probably be your best bet. It's according to where you're being stationed, and it's according to your living quarters. If you're in a barracks, that's going to definitely limit you. If you're in an apartment, you can have those set aside. And maybe some of the more nicer, expensive stuff that you don't want to just rebuy, you can actually ship that ahead and get that shipped out. But that's something maybe that would be good for me to really kind of analyze and think about, and maybe do a video on that, because a lot of people are mobile. A lot of people are for, short term even. Maybe they work for a big company. Here we have BMW and Michelin and a number of companies where people come in for a period of time and they leave. So that could be a good subject to take care of. But I think a survival cache is probably going to be one of your better options.
Ken Garrett says, with all the resistance from the blue states to what everything the White House does, Do you think this will eventually come to a boiling point?
I do. I think one of the problems is we have two cultures right now. We have two distinct cultures, and it is drawn on lines that neither side are willing to give up on. One is gun control. That is a hard line, and you got people that are just anti-gun. You got people that are like pro-gun and will not release those. They're not going to change that. And then you have things like um, trans in sports, and these different things that cause some divisions, with people, and a lot of and then we've got other elements, which we have elements of the large Latino community, which has their ideals, which a lot of them are very, pro-American, even though we're seeing some of the, as we're kind of changing things with a lot of the illegal immigration and kind of pushing back on that. So there are some lines. And then too, you've got even on religious lines where you have a large Christian community, and then you're getting more and more of this more secular community or even atheistic. And we have the Muslim communities. So that, and there's a lot of this going on there. And with their birth rates are massively increasing, I think we're going to see more and more of a division, trying to bring in Sharia law, building mosques, doing those kind of things that could cause some divisions within the areas, different areas of the country. For us here in South Carolina, we are growing like crazy. People are pouring into these areas, and really overall, we're seeing a lot of conservative people that are escaping areas. But we're seeing in Texas where they are dumping tons of energy into changing Texas from red to blue. And so we're going to see some shifts. But I think overall, I think that, the one thing problem is like in California, there are as many conservatives. There are more conservatives in California than there are in any other state. It's just that they're outnumbered. And so then it kind of forces them into a state that where they don't even feel like that they're being represented. And I think that kind of stuff is what really causes an issue. But yes, I feel like that we are dividing more and more. Whether that comes to, as long as we can keep an open debate, we're good. It's when talk stops, that's when it gets dangerous. And unfortunately, a lot of people on the right and the left are just refusing to hear either side. One thing, I'm very conservative. I'm a Christian. I'm all about pro-gun, big time. I mean, that is there, and freedom of speech and all that stuff. So I am firm. But sometimes I like to at least consider some of the other thoughts and why they think that way. And you need to be a little bit open, not compromise your core beliefs, but be a little bit open to their point of view. And maybe together you can come to a little consensus, because I think we're losing the art of debate to just a shouting match. And when that happens, then violence starts to occur.
DZ Ren says, Such, do you have or have you thought about doing a podcast to be able to talk about prepping, kind of like TED Talks for preppers?
We're actually talking to a company right now that has a huge network, and they're wanting us to come and do some things. And podcasts are one of the big things they do. We've talked about it in the past. The one problem that I have with podcasts is not, I enjoy it and I enjoy being on them. But the time constraint. I do have the Such channel, Such 00 channel, which is my main gun channel. It's double the size almost of my Sensible Prepper channel, but the Sensible Prepper channel is big as well. So I'm very busy a lot of times. So we're trying to find out if that's something we can do. And honestly, I really liked the podcast thing. And again, we have been talking already about it, and we'll probably move to it, because a lot of times people are listening to podcasts and they can listen to it anywhere, anytime, again, while they're driving, while they're doing whatever. And so it makes it really nice. Even my son, who works for me, Seth, he's got his headsets in while he's doing stuff on the website and doing things in the computer, and he listens to different podcasts. That has to come at some point. We're just working it out. So thanks for asking.
Prepper Medic says, what do you recommend for emergency medical preps and training?
Okay. That's great. That is great. Well, one thing that we've done quite a bit is we're good friends with Skinny Medic, who does Medical Gear Outfitters. Great resource for your medical supplies. But Dietrich was doing a number of Stop the Bleed or trauma classes or whatever, and he got so busy he hasn't been doing them as much. So I highly recommend, number one is to start to train. Go to some classes, even if it's just CPR class at the Red Cross. Get some training, because here's the thing: if you look at this kind of stuff and you go, well, that's just too much. I'm not a nurse, I'm not a doctor. But when you know a few basic things, you can treat people. And one thing we did, went to Smith & Wesson a couple of weeks ago, and they were showing some new guns, and they had set up on the range this one group that actually set up some people they had these pumps to them, and the pump would just pour blood everywhere. And then we'd work in teams of two and have to run over and take care of them, get a tourniquet on them, get them stabilized. I mean, that kind of practice and getting in there with your hands dirty and you don't want your hands dirty when you're touching somebody's blood, but, taking care of people like that, it puts you in a different mindset. So training is number one. Number two is having your trauma kits and having a good stock trauma kit. Medical Gear Outfitters, great resource. amp3.net. That's USNER doc. He was an emergency room doctor in Portland, Oregon, super knowledgeable, and he has some really well thought out kits as well. And I really like Dave over there. They just do a great job. So that is a good source. Those two are my two go-tos. But having the supplies, one thing I will say, and this is something that's a little bit unusual, and I think it was Bear Independent where I saw where he was talking about this with Refuge Medical, which is also a good source, is that you need a lot of gauze. And it was kind of funny. It kind of struck me because they sell buckets of this gauze, because if you are injured or wounded in a survival situation where there is no help, you're going to have that. They're going to have to treat it, and it's going to have to be changed out continuously. And yes, you can use your clothes and everything else, but it's not sanitary. So having good gauze, an abundance of gauze, can be important, especially if you're starting to bleed out or you're doing something. If you attach a tourniquet, but then you have to pack that wound, and it gives you something to be able to clean it and put it back in and do it a lot. So one of the big things I think a lot of people are missing, and I was one of them until I started watching and listening to this, is that you need to have a lot of gauze. One thing about cat tourniquets, be careful where you buy them, because a lot of cat tourniquets are counterfeit. And make sure they're coming through North American Rescue, which is a great source. And that's where Dietrich at Medical Gear Outfitters gets all of his stuff. In fact, North American Rescue is right here in Greenville, where I live. And they do a lot of training and a lot of things. So training is first, then you need the equipment, and that way you'll know how to use it. But having good tourniquets that are cat tourniquets, the problem is with these other cheaper counterfeit tourniquets is that they'll break, or the Velcro doesn't work, it comes loose. I mean, they're just poor quality. You want top quality when you're thinking about a tourniquet. And then, of course, your chest seals and your hemostatic agents, all that stuff, get it from a good, reputable source. So just be careful getting it from a good dealer. Medical Gear Outfitters, amp3.net, those are two of my tops. So, and then practice. But again, go to classes. Classes will really change everything.
Code Red Trauma says, question: I've seen a few people post on buying a Tannerite for location security. Thoughts on that?
We have Tannerite for that very reason. It's funny. I can't even, not where I live. We have some property, but we have neighbors and that are close proximity in a neighborhood, actually. So we don't do Tannerite here. And then at my range, my big range where I go, they won't let us do Tannerite there. But we do have Tannerite stored up for that very reason. And I think it's a force multiplier, not necessarily. It's really more for just scaring the bejesus out of people, really. You set up some Tannerite somewhere that's in a hidden location, especially if things start to have some issues. And two, it seals up. So, you can put it in different places. But having it to where, if you need to, you can fire off a couple of rounds. It's according to where you live and your situation. But I think that is a great, I mean, obviously I think it's great because that's one of our plans. Having some tannerite just gives you another layer of security, especially if you have a group of people heading your way. You fire off a couple of things of tannerite, people are going to be like a little bit leery because they don't even know what it is. And that thing just goes off and scares the crap out of people. But yeah, tannerite, and there would be ways to use it and figure out your strategy in a situation. We do actually alarms, like trip alarms and fifth ops. Great source. I've done some videos on fifth ops. I love those. It's low tech. You don't have to worry about internet or power or anything else. It's a great source, and that's fifth ops, FITHOPS. They have some trip alarms and they just, all you need is shotgun primers, or they have a lot of other things. You can even have a pepper spray that comes out. So low tech, but having some layers, and that's what we're big about. We have to have it. We have a lot of security, overlaying security. We have Ring cameras, but we also have other brand cameras because some can be hacked into, so we have redundancy. Then we have our home security system with Ring and our home cameras and our standard security system. And then we have dogs. Dogs are important. The cats are not so important for security, but we have a good big German Shepherd, and he is very possessive of our property. Friendly, wonderful, but if he doesn't know you, you don't want to come around. And then we have other people right in our area that are, like we are. We are compound. But having a lot of layers of security is important. So I think tannerite is going to be one of them.
Dead Pixel says, "Hi, Such and Sir Mac. I'm at work right now, but I figured I'll ask a question and watch this later. How do you balance faith in Christ and trusting your preps for you and your family? Thanks."
That's a good question because we are Christians. We are very serious about our faith, and we believe that God, in the end, is it's everything. But just like Noah, and other things with even the disciples as they were going out. I mean, even Christ himself said that when you go out, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy a sword. That's in Matthew 5. And a lot of people, are like, what should I do? Here's the thing. When it says in the Old Testament, it says, do not murder. That's do not kill. That's one of the 10 commandments. But the word actually is murder. And that means to go out and, senselessly kill someone. But if you read through the Old Testament, especially, is you protect the oppressed. You protect the weak. You defend yourself. Nehemiah, when he was building the wall to rebuild Jerusalem, he told each of his men as they were building to have a sword on their hip, ready to do action at all times. And then you look through King David and all, they were all soldiers. They were all men of war. And the thing is, guys, and it's just like Jordan Peterson says, and this is perfect, is you in your heart, not in your heart, but you have to be a monster. You have to be willing or able to do great violence. But then you discipline it. You discipline that. And you don't. And you care for the weak. And you care because otherwise you're a victim. And it's funny. I've had pushback from that before by saying that is you need to be a monster. Listen, you start messing with my family and I will turn into the devil almost, except a whole, I shouldn't say that. I'll turn into the Archangel Michael. But, I will defend my family at all cost. Even to myself, I will self-sacrifice. So, you've got to have this ability to be able to be strong if you have to, because otherwise, again, you're just a victim and you're just being pushed around. But if you are willing and able, but then again, and this is where really the Christianity part comes, is, what, I can do this, but I choose not to do this, and I choose to live in the will of God. But is when God's will, if my wife is out there and she has 2 men attacking her, is that God's will for me not to react? Same thing here. Is it not God's will for me to protect and provide for my family? Yes, we count on God, because here's the thing. I can prep to the moon. I can prep everything and have this big compound and everything else. But if God's not in it and I trust in him, I say, here, this is what I'm doing, but we're trusting in you to do the rest. So that is the thing, is just like I buy car insurance, I could say, well, I trust in God, so why do I need to buy car insurance? God will provide. He'll provide me a car if I total it. No, that's just ridiculous. So take prepping is the same way. It's insurance. It's just a little different. And two, during the Old Testament, even in the New Testament, it was more of an agrarian society. People were growing their own food. They were doing their own things. I mean, Christ himself, all the parables are like sowing the seed and the sheep and the lamb, the sheep and the goats. And I mean, it's so laid out. We live in a different world, but yet basically we are still just like they were then. So we don't go out and seek violence. We're all about defense. We're not about offense. We don't look at it that way. That's the Army's job. My job is to defend myself, my family, and my friends, my neighbors, or whoever I come in contact with that is under oppression. Then I kind of want to step in the right way and help where I can, because that's what God wants me to do. So just, I know that's a lot, but I am really firm about it. I'll tell you this, guys, before COVID hit, and I want you to listen to this. Before COVID hit, I was sitting at home. I was sitting at my shop right here. And all of a sudden I thought, and Trump was in office and the economy was going bonkers and things were happening, good things. And I just thought, I'm leading people to prep. I'm leading people to prepare for something that is in the future. And I started really doubting myself. I mean, I really started going, is this the right thing to do under God? With the ad money that comes with Sensible Prepper, yes, we make it's an income and it's a good income. But I thought, God, I can't be who I'm not. I can't be something that is deceiving and maybe having these thoughts. And I just prayed. I said, God, if you want me to stop, I'll stop right now. And I remember when I stopped, I was in the yard, I was walking over to my house, and I looked up and I just said, I'll stop right now. And it was undeniable. Keep doing what you're doing. And it kind of scared me, because then I'm thinking, well, okay, I will. And then the next week, I started hearing reports from China with COVID. And then everything started unfolding. And I thought, thank you. Thank you for that answer, because I'm seeking his will, even though I'm preparing for whatever. But I'm always listening to his voice. So keep that in mind.
Jerry Feller says, I signed on late and it's probably off topic, but how do you store gasoline in hot weather?
That's a tough one. You can't store a lot unless you have a tank that is for gasoline storage. So for us, what we do is we keep our gas, we don't keep it in a cool environment, because that's going to be very difficult to do. But gas is volatile. I mean, it is not super stable. Even the fumes, if somebody lights a match, it can go off. So I keep a limited supply. Typically, we keep about 20 to 25 gallons of gasoline on hand, because we have lawnmowers and we have our 4x4 and we have things, we use it and we rotate it out. And then at times, if I need to, I'll fill up the car with it, and then I just rotate it out continuously. But we try to keep about 25 gallons. You could probably do more. There are some systems where people have taken like refrigerators, the old refrigerators, and they buried them, and then they keep it in there and they seal it up. And, there are some ways to do it. But for me, I'm really heavy more on propane. I like to have propane because it's very stable. It lasts for a long time. The way they've got those things sealed, it's stable. It's not just going to go off unless, you do something to make it go off. But I really like propane. But for our generator as well, we have a gas powered generator, but we have solar generators as well to help. But keeping enough gas. Now, for me, like when we had Helene, one thing we did was, knowing it was coming, we went ahead and purchased even more gasoline. I have more gas cans, but I keep just a certain amount full. We filled them all up. And you know what? We used it because we ran that generator. Having a propane generator, though, or a dual fuel generator, makes it really good to be able to do both. So if you don't have the gas, you can switch to propane. But having solar gives you that option as well. And we have the EcoFlow, which is, guys, I'm telling you, if you're looking for a solar powered generator, EcoFlow is phenomenal. And we went through, Helene, 1 full week without power and then 10 days without internet. And the EcoFlow was beautiful. I mean, I loved it. It's a lot of work. We had to put the panels out. We had to run. If the EcoFlow, if the sun was low or it didn't, we had a cloudy day, which we did have a couple of those, I would hook up my gas generator to it and charge it up. And we kept 3 refrigerators, a freezer and 2 refrigerators going, and all the other things that we needed to do. So gasoline is vital, but have some backups because gasoline is going to be limited to your storage. It's going to be limited. So be careful with gas. Don't put it in your garage. Don't store it. Store it in another building somewhere away because, again, it can, it's volatile.
Kaylin Strain says, I live in the city because I do not drive due to limited vision. How can I get local prepper groups to take my prepping and desire to participate seriously?
One thing we have, and I don't know what area you live in, obviously in cities, there are preppers. There are a lot of preppers. But one thing that we have here, and you should have one wherever you are, is a Facebook prepper group. It's one of the easiest ways to get into something where they meet. I think it's once a month, and they'll meet, and it's just people from all over. They don't necessarily know who each other are. They just meet, and they'll talk about prepping, and then you can network in that group, and you get to know people. So that is one way. And really, because in a city, you've got, number one, you got limited space in probably an apartment or a condominium. And so, but you can still utilize a lot of that space for some prepping supplies, and you may already be doing that. So, but having a way to filter your water, having a way, have some extra food put back, having a power source if you need it, having a way to heat, if you can come up with something. A lot of apartments won't let you do propane or whatever. But you need to look into that because heat is going to be vital, and especially in the wintertime. But I highly recommend maybe going to some of these prepper meetings. Sometimes cities they'll host a prepper group, a survival group. They'll have a conference or an expo, and you might get to know some people. But to me, one of the best to me, which I'm banned from Facebook for 10 years, so I don't even like to promote them. But I still have my personal account, but they closed down our Such and Sensible Prepper Facebook. But what I really, but having that resource to be able to look up prepper groups in your area can be vital, and it can really give you some people to be in touch with. Or if there are some stores in the city that, handle different things that are more prepping kind of related, you can get to know people in there and then be able to, kind of connect. A lot of times people that are really into natural stuff, some of them are on the other side. Some of them are way left. Some of them are more just natural and we want to live, but you can actually pick up, meet people even in those kind of places. But it's, I think the prepper group, look it up in a Facebook page, see if there's something in your area, and you may be surprised. I was surprised about this one.
Nick Coward says, howdy from Florida. Do you prefer rolled or compressed gauze?
It goes either way. I mean, compressed, you're pulling it apart, but it works. But compressed gauze gets really small. And that's one thing. I was just doing a video on TSA, actually, and I used some compressed gauze that was really put down. But then when you pull it out, there's a lot to it. It was vacuum sealed, and I put it in my box. So I think the rolled gauze will be a little more convenient to pull out and to use. Because you're not pulling and having to unravel that compressed gauze. But I think you'll have more space with the compressed gauze. If you think about rolls of gauze, that can get a lot. I mean, that can really take up a lot of volume. So maybe the compressed gauze might be a better option. So I guess it's weighing it out. And I think probably your rolled gauze is probably cheaper. But what you could do is actually take some gauze and lay out, so many feet, and then to put a vacuum sealer to it and that's pretty much what they've done. So that could be a good way to compress your gauze if you need space, if you're space limited.
David Amin did a super chat of $3 and says, "How's it going?"
Thanks, David. Good, man. And I'm looking forward to seeing you coming up. We have a big range day for our Patreon groups. And we do every September, we go down into Martin, Georgia, where there's a big range down there, Red Hill Range. And we host, because we really appreciate our Patreon members, we just host it. And it's, of course, certain levels that are there, but it's not all the real expensive or anything. And we do it as a big thank you. And David, who just popped on, he's going to be coming down for the first time. This is our 4th year, I believe. And it's if you want to get in, it's too late this year. But we provide dinner on Friday night, have a big social time, and then we have a range time, and it's just great. And if you consider our Patreon account, we try to do a lot of stuff over there, and it's just a great way to help us, because honestly, YouTube is hammering us right now, which it ebbs and flows. So we're going through a really kind of crappy time with YouTube right now, but YouTube's the best thing out there.
Robin in Virginia says, "I would love to see you do a session on gift giving of prepper supplies that aren't going to speak prepper. An example, we're giving our 5 adult kids battery buddies. More ideas."
Good. That's a great idea. Look, one thing you can do, I think, is to give gifts that are toward like storm preps. Because people, power goes out. And the thing is, if you're prepping for a storm, it doesn't take a whole lot more to step over to the next side. If, like for Helene, that was a week without power. And, so there were supplies that we had put back that just got us through that. In fact, my wife, in the middle of the week, she just said, it's not that bad. Because we had generators going. We had our bio lights, which were great. They were solar powered. And our EcoFlow, we had everything set up. So, something like an emergency radio. In fact, I'm just getting ready to review. I just reviewed one. I'm getting ready to put it up on Sensible Prepper. Have an emergency radio. They need the weather. They need that. And some of them have shortwave. They have a solar panel. That's nothing that's kind of extreme. Another thing is the Mr. Heater Buddy. And it sounds like Mr. Heater Buddy. That's a propane powered portable heat source that can be used inside. And they make different sizes and shapes. You can buy them for your kids and say, hey, if there's a power outage, this is something that's great to have. So look at it maybe toward the power outage side, or, a storm or a natural disaster, and feather that in. And then they're just going to be better prepared, and they won't even know it. So, you don't have to buy them a whole case of MREs, or, buy them a bunch of ammo, and buy them a fire kit and say, hey, look, fire is vital. Again, boils your water, cooks your food, gives you heat, gives you light. Fire is primal. It is essential. And that is one thing, please, if you're listening and you don't have a fire kit, get a fire kit, build one, or just buy one off of Amazon or whatever. Ferro rod. Don't just count on a Bic lighter, because the Bic lighters are great, but a lot of times they can have problems, or the fuel can leak out. And this is a little fire sleeve. It protects the Bic. But there lifeboat matches. There are things that you can do. But again, think about what would be good for them in a power outage, and that'll work. That'll work for even more extended periods. That's a great idea, by the way.
DZ Ren says, "What criteria do you use to evaluate if a sidearm is good for everyday carry?"
Well, for one thing, size is important to me. That's what she said. But, the thing is, there are some trade-offs when it comes to a very small gun, just like with the Smith & Wesson 2.0 Bodyguard. It's small. And when I'm shooting it, of course, I shoot a lot, so it doesn't really affect me as much as it would someone who has less experience. But when it's not as shootable as a little bit of a larger gun. So you get a little bit of a larger gun, you have a little more control. So if I'm in a real bad situation, let's say I'm going downtown or whatever, we're going to go down there. Greenville downtown is absolutely great. One of the most beautiful cities in the country. And a lot of people are moving here because of that, unfortunately. But, I will carry something a little more shootable. The guy that was at the mall that took that 40-yard shot or whatever, he had more of a capable firearm. So you need to weigh out, what is the largest I will feel comfortable carrying? And yet, I don't want it to be too big. I don't want it to print. I don't want it to be too much. I don't want it to go, man, that's just too much. Again, for me, I carry the smaller guns when I'm just around the house. But if I'm going out, if I'm doing stuff, I like to carry a little bit larger gun. For me, I carry the Smith & Wesson CSX. I just really love it. I carried the P365 for a long time, but I moved to the CSX. It's a little bit larger. It's a little bit more, a lot more shootable, to be honest with you. It's 9mm. I want a good caliber. I want to have good self-defense ammunition. So having balancing it out. A lot of people want to carry a revolver. Revolvers, they're limited round capacity, 6 rounds, 5 rounds in a J frame, but it's dependable. And you pull it out and man, that thing will just fire. And you don't have to worry about the slide getting caught. You can shoot it out of your jacket, if you had to. So there's so many different options and there's so many different preferences. But one thing I would say is look for a good quality gun that has a good reputation. The SIG P365 originally had all kind of problems. I've shot 6,000 rounds through my P365 and had no malfunctions, 0. Tim from Military Arms Channel had 3. And he couldn't get them to function right. Now he does carry them. He carries one. So having a good reputation. If you have a SIG P320 that's in this big controversy, I would not carry that until they get everything figured out. Even though I have 3, I won't touch them because they may go off. So it's a balance of reliability and finding out what the consensus is. Guys, on YouTube, there's so many different reviewers. Well, it's funny to me. One thing that people say sometimes is, "Oh, Suits just likes all the guns." Listen, if I'm reviewing something, number one, I think somebody may use this for self-defense, so I want to give them the truth. Number two, if I'm saying something wrong, then you can go to 10 other reviews and see, oh, if they're all having problems and I'm not, well, that's a problem. So again, preference, size. Again, don't try to go with the tiniest North American Arms revolver. Put that in your back pocket, but have something that's shootable and yet has the right size that you'll carry and you feel comfortable carrying.
Chris Sewell asked, Don, what is your opinion on the National Guard unit assisting with the ICE deportations to curb crime?
Well, this is touchy. I mean, there's some federal there can be federal overstepping. There can be. Like in D.C., unfortunately for them, the ones that are against it, there is, D.C. is not a state. And so there's some special parameters. Plus, it's the capital. And that's where when people come, and unfortunately, D.C. it was very dangerous. I've had my own experience in D.C. I think what they're doing right now is much needed because the police, law enforcement there has, and not them, the guys on the street, that it's not their fault. It's these people coming in that have these liberal ideas and they're letting people get away with stuff. That needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, go to South Chicago. It's a war zone over there. There were more people killed in Chicago than there were in Afghanistan. In an open war zone, there were more people killed in Chicago. That's wrong. Now, should the federal government go into Chicago? That's a whole nother thing. There's a whole legal network that protects the state. And yet, what about the people? So I think that, the problem is you've got these people that are super liberal that are in charge because they've been voted up by their constituency, and they're wreaking havoc. And something needs to be done about that. And honestly, if you live in that area, people need to rise up and say, hey, this is unacceptable. No cash bail is unacceptable. But with the federal guys coming in and the illegals, these people are coming into the country. They can cross state lines. So there is some precedent to be able to say, hey, let's get the illegal, especially the violent criminals, especially. But if you're here illegally, you're here illegally. And we need a country without borders is not a country. And just like Europe is finding out right now. There are people pouring into Western Europe, and it's changing. They're losing their culture. They're losing their identity as a people. And to me, that is sad. That is really sad. I love to think of the French culture and the food, or in Spain, or you look at England and all the things, and we're not even going to have that if they don't do something about it. So I think that we need those separations, just like Japan. Japan's going, no, we're not letting people in here because we want to retain our culture. So with the U.S., we're like, we want the people here. We like the diverse culture. We're a very different place. But when you're coming in illegally and you're raping and killing and you're bringing in drugs and you're running guns and all that stuff, please stop that, because that endangers my family. It endangers our whole way of life. So if it gets to that point, but again, I'm not speaking from this because there are a lot of specifics. There are a lot of things that are out there. So I can't speak to all of it and say, I think the National Guard that would be martial law and come in and they need to close things down. They need to clean this place up. That's up to the courts. But as far as the way I feel about it, I think things do need to change. It's 1:00. Wow. That was fast, guys. Of course, we were a little bit late. And sorry about the technical difficulties. We've had some issues with getting online with YouTube for some reason. It may be our computer. But again, guys, check out Exotac. You need a fire kit. Fire kits are vital. And Exotac gives 20% off using Suits 20, and they are the best. There are cheaper options out there. And if you don't have one and you can't afford some of these nicer pieces, go get a good ferro rod, get you a Bic lighter, get you some fire tinder, get that and put it in a little kit and keep it somewhere where you can get to it, because fire is vital. Also, if you're looking for something to kind of get you going, this is a great book. The Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse. There is a link, Amazon link down below in the description. And this will give you somewhat of a mindset of, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. So, if you're new to prepping, we try to do a lot of things on here to get you going. But honestly, a lot of the questions here are questions that really lend to getting that mindset, understanding about preparedness. It just protects you, your family. Plus, the more my neighbor's prepared, the better I'm prepared. And that's important. And listen, if your only preps are a get home or a bug out bag, and you're like, I got my bug out bag supplies, you need to really consider, unless you're in an urban bad area, to hunker down where you are, because you're on the road, you don't have your supplies, you don't have what you need, and you're very vulnerable. And you may be in a vehicle, you may not. The freeways may be locked down, and you may be on foot. And guys, trying to survive on foot is going to be dicey, unless you are a Navy SEAL Ranger warrior that's lived in survival school and an instructor. And there's not many of those guys. So thanks, Sarah Mack, for getting the questions to me. Also, guys, thanks for the great questions. That was really good. I just thought, you know what, we're going to do a Q&A today, because you guys always have some good questions. And thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.